Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda and this is a vlog of my late autism and ADHD diagnosis. And I'm like, this is a vlog because every once in a while I get comments where people are like, stick to a script, and I clicked on this to be educational. And I think most people in my comment sections find that the things that I impart are quite educational. It's just not in your standard lecture format. It is me sitting here chatting with you and talking about fun and interesting topics. At least topics that I think are fun, and again, a lot of people in my comments also agree are fun. I don't know. I feel like I'm a little defensive today, and I'll try to let that go. But I have a screen capture where I had one person who left a comment that said, "Don't change who you are. You are awesome. Thank you for showing up for the community, unmasked, and leaving this video unedited so that people can see what autism and ADHD actually look like." And then right below that comment was somebody saying, if you have ADHD, you should probably use a script so that you don't go on so many tangents. And the thing about that is ABA, it's applied behavioral analysis in real life. So there are kids who have to go to ABA therapy, and I've talked about this extensively. I don't remember which video. It was kind of a recent one where I was talking about how ABA is torture. I do not stand behind ABA. And it is basically, it was a therapy that started in the 80s that they sent autistic kids to because they were trying to cure autism and trying to teach autistic people how to be neurotypical, but you can't. Our brains are not neurotypical. You're not going to change that. So I didn't get diagnosed until the age of 42. So luckily, the only good thing about that is that I did not have to go to formal ABA training. The thing is, because I was undiagnosed, I got ABA training through society. So I get comments like this growing up my entire life. Now, this person, because I disclosed that I have ADHD, they were able to use that in their comment to me. But before, it wouldn't be like, oh, well, if you've got ADHD, it'd be like, Amanda, you go on too many top tangents. You're too difficult to listen to. You need to change the way you talk. And so what applied behavioral analysis is trying to fit a neurodivergent brain into the neurotypical way of just being and acting. There's something wrong with you, you need to change. It's the medical model of disability, that there's something wrong with the disabled person, they need to fit society. The social model of disability is, hey, as a society, some of us have a disability, so let's see what we can do to accommodate them so that we can all work and be inclusive together in this society. So that would be accepting the fact that I go on wild tangents sometimes because that's how my brain works, and the other person doing what they can to work out a communication with me. Which actually brings up a really cool point that my son and I had as a conversation today in the car. So if you haven't quite realized, today is an Amanda Rambles video. I'm just going to talk about whatever pops into my head. These sometimes I think are the most fun videos. So I was driving home from occupational therapy with my son, which, tangent, ABA, hate it. Occupational therapy, though, is autistic affirming. So, for instance, today, my son was in occupational therapy, and he has to do this task for school. It's a requirement. We got to get this done. Autistic people do need to live out in the world, right? So the therapist was like, hey, how about you do it this way? And my son was like, no, that's not going to work for my brain. Okay, what about if we approach it from this direction? So they're going back and forth to find an autistic affirming way to approach the task. That's occupational therapy. It's like, this has to be done. How can we make it work so that you're not changing who you are? So I love occupational therapy, applied behavioral therapy, or applied behavioral analysis, because there's nothing wrong with being autistic or ADHD. It's a different brain type, and it should be accepted in society. And that's why I don't edit my videos, because the more times people can be in a space with somebody who is unmasked and is showing mannerisms that are neurodivergent, then you're going to get used to it. People are afraid of things that they haven't encountered before. And the more we can normalize it, and the more it's like, hey, this is not bad, you get used to it and you realize that it's not weird or scary. So if you met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. I'm just one representation, but there are a lot of autistic people who will present like me. I don't make eye contact very often, and that includes like with the camera. Like I can force it, but then it's going to be almost like too much. If I don't have a fidget in my hand, which I don't right now, then I'm going to be using my hands a lot to talk. It helps me kind of concentrate on the words that I'm trying to say. And also I'm trying to hold that point in my head where I was talking about on the way home, which I want to get back to. And also right now, it's really cold and I didn't want to have my space heater on because then you hear the roaring on the video. So I was waiting to start this video. And I warmed up my little water bag heat thing and I got it in my lap and it's really cozy. Okay, so so that's kind of keeping my hands a little busy too. I don't know if the mic is picking it up though. So on the way home, we had a really interesting conversation. We were talking about how, like sometimes people's voices are annoying and that's how the conversation started. So, and I'm going to use that because it's just a concrete example. And then I'm going to explain how that can like go out a little bit further. So I'm trying to like how to say this without outing anyone specific, but, someone from my childhood, it was an adult in my life, had the most grating voice. That voice, like, and I felt bad because it was their voice. It was their natural voice. But my ears could not listen to their voice. And so my son and I were talking about how that's a me problem, right? Like you don't want to change who they are. That is their natural voice. And they shouldn't have to mask it or change it or whatever to be around me. Now, it's a little different because, again, they were grown up in my life. They weren't really, but you get my point. Like if it's somebody that was your peer, or let's say it's a boss and their voice is, well, at some point you gotta like the pros and the cons. Like if they're your boss and the pro is that you like working for that company and you like all the things about your job, but their voice, every time they are in the room with you, you feel like fingernails on the chalkboard, you might just have to deal with it. It is not your place to say anything, especially if they're your boss. But if you flipped it and they were your employee, it's still not your place to say anything about that person's voice because it's their natural voice. Well, but let's say it's not somebody you have to have in your life. Like let's say you met somebody at a quilting club that you were at and their voice was really annoying to you. Again, you'd have to decide, okay, do I want to be in this club because every time I'm with this person, that is all I can concentrate on? And this may not be the same thing for a neurotypical person. Like they probably can tune it out, but like autistic people, like we can like key in on these things, which is kind of ironic because a lot of neurotypical people get really annoyed by autistic behaviors. Like I've had people like, if I don't have a fidget, they're like, stop moving your hands in the comments. Or if I do have a fidget, they're like, oh, your fidget was so distracting. Well, you know what? This is and how I talk. And so whatever. But so autistic people, because of our senses, so something like somebody's voice can really affect how we interact with them, because our brains can't tune it out, and it's like we will hyper focus on it. And to somebody else, their voice might be fine, but to us, it's like, ooh, this is not good sound. I cannot think of anything else. And so at that point, you're like, are the pros of being in this cult group with this person worth me having to just like mask through, because it's a me problem, not a them problem, of being around this person. So here's where I'm going to bring it to like the bigger picture. I had somebody on Facebook got into like a discussion with me in the comments of a group, and they were worried. They were feeling like an ableist jerk because they had a friend who got a late autism diagnosis, and as they started unmasking their autistic traits, they felt like they just weren't really friends or compatible with that person anymore. And they kind of felt like they were being a jerk, that they didn't want to be friends with them because they were autistic. And they're obviously coming to a group to just talk about it and like try to get some clarity around it. And I said that it's fine, because, you know, sometimes friendships do drift apart and people change. And when somebody gets a late autistic diagnosis, they are going to change a lot of how and who they are. Before my diagnosis, I was so masked. I did behaviors and did things that weren't true to who I was, but I was masked and didn't know it. And now that I am trying to listen to more what my needs are and how to regulate my nervous system, you know, I'm changing. And I've had from friends kind of drift off because who I am now either irritates them, or we don't have those things in common anymore. You know, there's different reasons why those friendships just no longer lasted. And so what I told that person was that as long as they realize that it's not necessarily because the person's autistic, it's because that person isn't who they became friends with anymore. That person has changed. And as long as you are taking, you know, the ownership of it and saying, my boundary is like, these are the things that I liked you for, and you aren't those anymore, but that's okay. I don't want you to change and try to fit back into who you used to be if it's not good for you. What people will be upset about when someone gets an autistic diagnosis is like, they're like, I want that person to be who they always were. And it's harmful because our masked selves were not good for us. Our masked selves cause trauma. They cause CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. They cause nervous system dysregulation. They cause burnout over the long run. And so being masked all the time is really not good for an autistic person. In the DSM-5, it says we have social deficits, which I don't like. I prefer to say social differences because autistic people do socialize differently than the majority, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad way to socialize. It is just different. We don't read social cues the same way as a neurotypical person does. So as we are unmasking our autism and kind of like getting back to what is natural for us, we are going to change. And I think that for a lot of people, if they can go through that process with us and be like, oh, you aren't who you used to be, but they'll still find things to love about who we are now. But for a lot of people, that's too much, and they just want who we always used to be. And so they will end up drifting out of our lives. If you do have somebody in your life who has become late diagnosed and you do want to support them through their unmasking process, then some of the things that would help me, and again, I am one autistic person, but again, we do often share common traits. So a couple of things that I think could be good general advice is always provide as much context as you can. So like if you want to set up an outing with a friend, like, hey, I want to hang out, give as much details as you can. Like, we're going to meet from this time to this time. If it needs to be open-ended, say that, but also say if you get overstimulated, you can always leave early, like giving the autistic person like permission. Like, they don't need permission, but like saying it is good, like if you need to leave early, that's fine. But as much context, like who's all going to be there. Oh gosh, there's nothing worse when you think that you're meeting one person for dinner, like at a restaurant, and you get there and it was really, you were just one of 5 people they invited and you weren't expecting the other 4 people, because that's a whole different social situation that I may or may not have said yes to, depending on where my social battery was for that day. So giving as much context, as much information to your autistic friend, just being very clear in your communication, not leaving things to later to figure out as much as possible, saying, oh yeah, let's do lunch on Wednesday. Just go ahead and say, hey, let's do lunch at noon on Wednesday. Like, just plan it as best you can. And then don't change those plans. When I know emergencies come up, but the more consistent you can be, because when we get a last minute change of our routine, it can throw us for like, it can cause a meltdown or a shutdown. Another one is like never, again, it's more about just like providing all the context, but just never ever text, oh, we need to talk, or hey, call me later. Call me later about this. We need to talk about this. Like, there's nothing more anxiety inducing than, hey, we need to talk, because then that's just, I need a prescript for that. I need to know, what are we talking about? Just give me that information. Okay, so this video has gotten a little on the long side again, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm laughing because it went in such a different direction than I thought. Like, I do sometimes have topics for my videos, and sometimes I'll even write out like a couple of little things, key points I want to make sure that I hit. And then when I'm doing my Amanda's Rambles, it's literally, I'm just sitting down and processing out loud. Who knows what will come up. But today, I actually thought that I would ramble to the point of talking about my burnout day yesterday. And all I'm going to say about it is it's amazing. It still befuddles me how dynamic autism is, because today I'm feeling so much better. Yesterday I was having a burnout day. Like, I could not do anything. Like, I wanted to film a video yesterday. I spent, thankfully, I mean, by the grace of whatever, I didn't have anything that I had to do. Like, some days there's things that you just, as an adult, you just have to get them done. I was able to clear my schedule, and I told my husband, it's like I'm taking a sick day without actually being sick, but it's because I was burnt out. Like my brain, my nervous system just shut down yesterday, and I pretty much spent most of the day laying on my couch reading my book. That was about the only thing I could do, and I needed that because today I'm feeling so much better. And I think the reason why is because all of last week was go, 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 go. And I did not have enough recovery time last week between things. And it just got to a point where my body was like, okay, you didn't schedule recovery time, so we're going to schedule it for you. And my body just went, phew, shut down. And luckily, since I was able to take it, and I just chilled and relaxed and recovered all day yesterday. Like I felt like a zombie. And I got decent sleep last night. Today, I feel pretty good. All right. So, I guess that's it. I don't know. I just love making these videos and talking to y'all and just learning together with you guys in the comments and unmasking our autism. Till the next video. Bye.